Have you ever bought a famous bourbon, expecting rich flavor and smooth depth, only to wonder why it tastes flat, harsh, or forgettable? Millions of Americans pour these bottles every year without a second thought. But the truth is, reputation and quality are not even close to the same thing. Today, we're ranking 15 famous bourbon brands from absolute worst to truly exceptional, from bottles that waste your money to the ones that actually earn their hype. Grab a glass. This ranking won't be gentle. Jim Beam. This is the bottle you see everywhere. At backyard barbecues, crowded house parties, and behind bars that need something familiar and cheap to pour fast. It's the bourbon people reach for when the label matters more than the liquid, and no one wants to think too hard. Jim Beam feels like the bourbon equivalent of elevator music. You recognize it instantly, but it never really asks for your attention. On the nose, it hints at sweetness and warmth, like it's about to be smooth and comforting. Then it hits the palate with a sharp edge, a flash of alcohol, and a thin sweetness that fades almost as quickly as it arrives. The finish doesn't linger, it simply exits. To be fair, it mixes easily, disappears into cola, and works when the goal is quantity over contemplation. For casual drinkers, it's familiar and unintimidating. But in a flavor-driven ranking, that sameness and lack of depth place Jim Beam firmly near the bottom. Maker's Mark. This is the bottle that shows up at dinner parties when someone wants to look like they brought something nice, without taking any real risk. It's a common sight on home bars that want to step up from the basics, but nothing too challenging. Maker's Mark drinks like a carefully padded armchair, soft, rounded, and designed to offend absolutely no one. The aroma suggests sweetness and comfort, hinting at something rich and mellow. On the palate, that promise turns into a smooth but muted experience. Gentle sweetness up front, followed by a finish that fades before it can say much at all. Nothing clashes, but nothing stands out either. To its credit, it's approachable, easy to sip, and friendly to newer bourbon drinkers who don't want sharp edges. It works well for casual pours and social settings where smoothness matters more than character. But in a ranking built on flavor and memorability, that deliberate softness keeps Maker's Mark from climbing any higher. Wild Turkey. This is the bottle that shows up at tailgates, poker nights, and loud kitchens where bourbon is meant to be felt, not analyzed. It's often poured by people who want something bold without caring too much about refinement. Wild Turkey is the bourbon equivalent of a raised voice in a crowded room. You hear it immediately, whether you want to or not. The aroma promises intensity and warmth, like it's gearing up to deliver something powerful. On the palate, that promise turns into a rush of heat and spice that arrives fast and leaves little room for nuance. The finish lingers longer than expected, but mostly as burn rather than balance. To be fair, it holds up in cocktails, cuts through mixers without disappearing, and appeals to drinkers who enjoy strength over subtlety. For some, that punch is exactly the point. But in a ranking that rewards depth and control, that raw edge keeps Wild Turkey from climbing higher than this spot. Woodford Reserve. This is the bourbon you see at upscale bars and corporate events where the bottle needs to look refined on the shelf. It's often chosen by people who want something respectable, familiar, and safe enough to please a mixed crowd. Woodford Reserve feels like a well-tailored suit worn a little too carefully, polished, proper, and slightly restrained. The aroma hints at richness and balance, suggesting depth and elegance. On the palate, that promise becomes a smooth, orderly experience. Gentle sweetness, mild warmth, and a finish that stays polite rather than expressive. Everything is in place, but nothing steps forward. To its credit, it's consistent, easy to sip, and works well as a neat pour for casual evenings. It's reliable when you want something that won't surprise or challenge anyone. Bulleit Bourbon. This is the bottle you spot behind busy cocktail bars and at house parties where whiskey needs to work fast and mix clean. It's often chosen by people who want something recognizable with a bit of edge, without paying for prestige. Bulleit drinks like a leather jacket bought off the rack. It looks rugged, but the personality underneath is fairly standard. The aroma suggests spice and boldness, hinting at a punchy experience. On the palate, that edge arrives quickly but flattens out just as fast. A brief spark of warmth followed by a dry, somewhat hollow finish that doesn't linger. To be fair, it performs well in cocktails, holds its ground with mixers, and suits drinkers who prefer a sharper profile without complexity. It's dependable in social settings where bourbon is part of the background. But in a flavor-driven ranking, that surface-level toughness and lack of depth keep Bulleit Bourbon from climbing any higher. Evan Williams. This is the bottle that lives in kitchen cabinets, shared apartments, and no-frills home bars where value matters more than image. It's poured casually, often without anyone really looking at the label, by people who want bourbon to be reliable and uncomplicated. This is the kind of bottle that shows up when the goal isn't to impress, but simply to have something on hand that works. Evan Williams feels like a well-worn work jacket. Not stylish, not exciting, but familiar and functional in a way that's oddly comforting. The aroma hints at sweetness and warmth, setting the expectation for something easygoing and friendly. On the palate, it delivers exactly that. Mild sweetness up front, a brief touch of heat in the middle, and a finish that fades quickly without leaving much behind. There's no sharp surprise and no real evolution. It arrives, does its job, and steps aside. To its credit, that simplicity is the point. It's affordable, versatile, and dependable. It works in mixed drinks, casual pours, and everyday situations where bourbon is part of the background rather than the focus. For many drinkers, it's an accessible entry point that feels unintimidating and familiar. But in a ranking built around flavor depth and memorability, that same simplicity limits how far it can go. Evan Williams doesn't offend, but it doesn't linger either. And that's why it lands squarely in the middle of the pack. Heaven Hill. This is a name most people don't order out loud, yet they drink it far more often than they realize. You'll find it behind value-focused bars, at casual gatherings, and in places where the bottle itself isn't meant to be the star. It's there to serve the moment, not define it. Heaven Hill feels like a backstage pass rather than the main act. Essential to the show, but rarely the reason anyone bought a ticket. The aroma hints at warmth and sweetness, suggesting something comforting and familiar. On the palate, it follows through in a restrained way. Gentle sweetness at the front, a mild dryness in the middle, and a finish that fades quietly without drawing attention to itself. Everything feels controlled, measured, and intentionally low-key. To be fair, that consistency is exactly why it works. It's approachable, dependable, and flexible enough to be enjoyed neat or mixed without much thought. It appeals to drinkers who value reliability and balance over bold personality or statement-making flavors. But in a ranking that rewards distinct character and memorability, Heaven Hill's low-profile nature holds it back. It does nothing wrong, yet it never quite steps into the spotlight. Solid, respectable, and quietly competent, it earns this position by being present without being memorable. Elijah Craig. This is the bottle that appears when someone wants to show they've moved past the basics but aren't chasing hype or status. You'll find it on thoughtful home bars and in conversations where bourbon finally starts to feel intentional, not accidental. Elijah Craig drinks like a well-written novel you didn't expect to enjoy this much. Grounded, confident, and quietly engaging from beginning to end. The aroma promises warmth and richness, setting expectations higher than the bottles ranked below it. On the palate, that promise delivers. Deeper sweetness up front, a steady warmth through the middle, and a finish that lingers long enough to register without overstaying. It feels structured and composed, never chaotic or thin. There's a sense of control here. Nothing spikes suddenly, nothing drops off too fast. Each sip feels deliberate, as if it knows exactly what it wants to be and refuses to rush the experience. To its credit, Elijah Craig remains approachable and fairly priced. It doesn't demand ritual or attention, yet it rewards anyone who slows down long enough to notice what's happening in the glass. It works just as well for relaxed sipping as it does for casual sharing, making it easy to recommend. But while Elijah Craig clearly steps into deeper territory, it stops just short of being truly distinctive. In this ranking, it earns its place by offering genuine depth and presence, even if it doesn't quite cross into standout territory. Old Forester. This is a bottle you see in serious whiskey bars and on shelves owned by people who actually drink their bourbon, not just display it. It shows up when someone wants something traditional without drifting into boredom or trend chasing. Old Forester feels like a well-kept classic car. Not flashy, not modernized for attention, but clearly built with purpose and confidence. The aroma hints at warmth and familiarity, setting expectations for balance rather than surprise. On the palate, it delivers a fuller experience than the names below it. Steady sweetness, controlled spice, and a finish that lingers with intent instead of fading quietly. There's energy here, but it's disciplined and measured. Each sip feels composed. It doesn't swing wildly or try to impress through intensity. Instead, it builds trust by doing exactly what it promises again and again. To its credit, Old Forester is versatile. It works neatly poured, stands up well in cocktails, and appeals to drinkers who want flavor without excess. It rewards attention, but it doesn't demand reverence or ceremony to be enjoyable. In this ranking, Old Forester earns its higher placement by striking a rare balance between character and accessibility. It doesn't shout, but it clearly speaks. And that confidence pushes it comfortably into the upper half. Buffalo Trace. This is the bottle that shows up everywhere bourbon is taken seriously, but not snobbishly. From well-stocked home bars to bartenders who want something dependable with credibility, Buffalo Trace often becomes the first real bourbon people confidently recommend. Buffalo Trace feels like a reliable lead actor who never steals the scene but always delivers. Calm, balanced, and quietly effective. The aroma suggests warmth and sweetness, hinting at something rounded and inviting. On the palate, it delivers a smooth, cohesive experience. Gentle sweetness up front, balanced warmth through the middle, and a finish that lingers just long enough to feel satisfying. Nothing spikes, nothing collapses, nothing feels out of place. There's an ease to it. Every element feels aligned, creating a pour that's difficult to dislike and easy to return to. To be fair, that versatility is one of its greatest strengths. It works neat, on ice, or mixed, and it's approachable for newcomers while still respectable for seasoned drinkers. It fits almost any moment without feeling forced. But in a ranking that rewards memorability and edge, that near-perfect balance becomes its limitation. Buffalo Trace does everything right. It just never surprises, and that's why it lands just outside the top tier. Four Roses, and this is the bottle you see when someone genuinely cares about what's in the glass, not just what's on the label. It appears in thoughtful collections and conversations where personal preference matters more than brand recognition. Four Roses drinks like a conversation that slowly gets better the longer it goes on. Layered, engaging, and quietly confident without trying to dominate. The aroma hints at brightness and depth, setting expectations a little higher. On the palate, it delivers a more expressive experience, sweetness with lift, gentle spice that builds rather than burns, and a finish that lingers with purpose. It feels intentional, not accidental. There's a sense of movement here. Each sip reveals something slightly different, keeping your attention without overwhelming it. To its credit, Four Roses remains approachable and never feels intimidating. It rewards slow sipping, but it also holds up in simple pours shared with friends. There's personality in the glass, but it's controlled and thoughtful rather than loud or showy. In this ranking, Four Roses earns its place by finally feeling distinctive. It doesn't just perform well, it leaves an impression. And at this point in the list, that sense of identity matters more than polish alone. Knob Creek. This is the bottle that shows up when bourbon stops being casual and starts being intentional. You'll see it on shelves owned by people who pour slower, think longer, and expect the glass to actually say something back. This isn't an impulse buy, it's a choice. Knob Creek drinks like a firm handshake that actually means something. Solid, confident, and unapologetically present. The aroma promises richness and weight, setting expectations for a fuller, more grounded experience. On the palate, it delivers with depth. Bold sweetness up front, steady warmth through the middle, and a finish that lingers long enough to leave an impression. It feels dense without feeling clumsy, powerful without losing balance. There's a seriousness to it. Each sip feels anchored, as if it refuses to rush or flatten itself for easy approval. It asks for a little patience and gives something back in return. To be fair, it's not trying to be delicate or universally pleasing. This is a bourbon for drinkers who enjoy presence and aren't afraid of intensity. It works best neat or with a single cube, holding its structure without falling apart or thinning out. In this ranking, Knob Creek earns its near-top position by offering real substance and character. Proof that boldness doesn't have to come at the cost of control. Angel's Envy. This is the bottle people bring when they actually want to impress, not loudly but deliberately. It shows up at thoughtful gatherings where the bourbon itself becomes part of the moment, not just something to pour and forget. Angel's Envy drinks like a carefully composed final act, polished, expressive, and quietly memorable. The aroma hints at softness and elegance, setting expectations for refinement rather than power. On the palate, that promise unfolds smoothly. Gentle sweetness, layered warmth, and a finish that lingers with a clean, rounded sense of closure. Nothing rushes, nothing overstays. It feels composed from start to finish. There's an ease here that feels intentional. Every sip flows naturally, creating an experience that feels complete without needing intensity or sharp contrast to make its point. To its credit, it remains accessible and inviting, even to less experienced drinkers. It feels special without feeling intimidating, refined without feeling sterile. It's the kind of bourbon that works just as well in quiet reflection as it does in shared celebration. In this ranking, Angel's Envy claims its position near the top by balancing approachability, elegance, and lasting impression better than almost anything else on the list. Blanton's. This is the bottle people whisper about, hunt for, and proudly display once they finally get their hands on it. You see it on collector shelves, special occasions, and gatherings where bourbon suddenly becomes the main topic of conversation. Blanton's drinks like a first-class upgrade you didn't expect to notice this much. Familiar, but undeniably elevated. The aroma hints at richness and balance, setting the expectation for refinement rather than spectacle. On the palate, it delivers a composed, satisfying experience. Smooth sweetness up front, confident warmth through the middle, and a finish that lingers with clarity instead of heat. Everything feels deliberate, nothing feels rushed. There's a sense of precision here. Each sip feels polished without being cold, expressive without being showy. It doesn't overwhelm. it reassures. To be fair, part of its appeal is the ritual. The bottle, the scarcity, the moment of opening it all add weight to the experience. Yet even without the story, it remains approachable enough to enjoy casually and rewarding enough to savor slowly. In this ranking, Blanton's earns its near-top position by combining polish, depth, and consistency, delivering an experience that feels elevated without losing its soul. Pappy Van Winkle. This is the bottle that turns bourbon into legend. It appears at milestone celebrations, hushed tastings, and moments where the pour itself feels ceremonial rather than casual. Pappy drinks like time, patience, and restraint distilled into liquid form. The aroma promises softness and depth before the glass even reaches your lips. On the palate, it unfolds effortlessly. Rich sweetness, gentle warmth, and a finish that seems to stretch rather than fade. Nothing bites, nothing rushes, it simply stays, long after the sip is gone. There's a calm authority to it. Each sip feels settled, as if it has nothing left to prove. The experience doesn't build through force, but through balance and quiet confidence. To be fair, scarcity and mythology amplify the moment. Not everyone will taste something life-changing. Expectations can be heavy. But what's undeniable is the balance, smoothness, and emotional weight carried in every sip when the glass is allowed to speak for itself. In this ranking, Pappy Van Winkle takes the top spot because it delivers not just flavor, but a moment. And that's something very few bourbons can truly replicate. Some bourbons chase attention, others earn it. If this ranking proved anything, it's this: the best bottles don't shout. Subscribe for honest rankings that cut through hype and respect your palate.